What a time to be alive, the age of information. So many people questioning creation. Come, take a seat or step outside to have a conversation. Let's listen, observe, and respond with compassion and truth. Welcome to another episode of the Fearless Shepherds podcast. My name is Kyle Cassidy. I'm joined here by David, a good friend of mine. David, your last name, Colturi?
Colturi.
Colturi, my paisan,
Mm-hmm.
Italian brother. Where's your family from in Italy?
Northern Italy. Small village called Dazio in the mountains north of Milan.
Italians do it differently, man. We've got a passion about us. We've got a loyalty about us. And I remember meeting you and just seeing the curls, and I was like, paisan, my brother.
We got that.
So I'm really excited to have you on the pod, man. You are a beam of light. You're someone who, when I first met you at Coachella, I was just like, this is a brother. This is someone who embodies, divinity and being present, but also being playful. Your inner child shines through you, and I try to embody that in everything I do. But you're also a professional and a leader and someone who I look up to as a friend. So really stoked to have you on the pod and talk a little bit more about who you are, where you're going, where you're from. If you want to introduce to the people what it is that makes David David. Where are you from? Talk a little bit about family and go into what it is that you see yourself embodying as a man in today's world.
Wow, quite the intro. I appreciate that, brother. And I echo it back to you. I'm honored to be here. I thank you for inviting me. And yeah, I would say the same things about you. I mean, it's crazy that we've known each other for what would
A month?
yeah seem like a very little amount of time to most people. But the connectivity that we've made and the levels that we vibe on are just incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we're going to get into this in further into the episode, but really, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. And every time I hang out with you, I just feel the positivity echoing on both sides. So this is awesome.
God's light, baby.
And yeah, let's get into it. Who is David? So I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, 1989, April 30th. And I grew up in Northwest Ohio. Pretty big family. I'm the youngest of four, so I have three older siblings. My dad's one of six. My mom's one of four. Lots of aunts and uncles, lots of cousins. And family was always one of those things that was just instilled from a very young age. And it's something that I didn't realize was not normal for everyone. And I just loved it. Like, having a big family was something that I always really, truly loved. And I hit the jackpot there.
Totally. I can relate to you on that.
Yeah, exactly. And so outside of family being like the number one priority growing up, activities was huge for me. I did all the sports, following in my siblings' footsteps and creating some paths of my own. Growing up in the Midwest where we don't have mountains or ocean, I just wanted to play all the sports. So it was, football, baseball, basketball, soccer, swimming, diving, golf, tennis,
Sheesh.
everything, and hockey and street hockey and made up backyard games with trampolines and capture the flag and all that kind of stuff. I definitely had a problem sitting still. And I probably, annoyed some of my teachers and my parents in some senses in that way. But I was a good kid and I was very active. And so, yeah, eventually that led me down the path of committing to, around high school, I really committed to diving. So diving was the sport that I really gravitated towards. I really liked it. I had a knack for it. And I really appreciated the sport for what it is. It's challenging, it's fearful, learning new dives, jumping, flipping, twisting, flying through the air is a super cool feeling.
Yeah.
Something that you don't get in a lot of other aspects. The coach to athlete relationship is really special. It's a very individual sport, and the coach kind of has to bring you up and take you through learning new dives and conquering your fear of, trying something new, possibly getting lost in the air, smacking the water, hitting the board. Like, there's some very serious consequences, and it's scary and it hurts, especially as a kid. So it's crazy. It was a cool thing to gravitate towards and commit to at a young age.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had a lot of success with it. I worked really, really hard, and I had a ton of support, again, from family and from coaches, mentors, friends, teachers. Really, it takes a village. And so it brought me up to graduating from a great high school with good grades, and I was one of the top recruits in the country, and I ended up going to Purdue University.
Boilermakers.
Boiler up, baby. You know
Got the
it.
Purdue shirt on.
Absolutely. I'm repping it right now. And they have one of the top diving programs in the country, and one of the best
Epic.
diving coaches in the world.
Wow.
And so, I keep going back to this theme in my life, like having the right role models. And we're going to talk about brotherhood and friends and coaches and stuff like that. And Adam Soldati was my coach at Purdue, and the coaches before him, I had Buck and Ed. They were like second father figures to me. And
So
they taught me
important.
so much in and out of the pool.
Yeah.
And so again, going down that path of diving, and still like with my family instilling me the importance of academics and community and friendships and family and stuff like that. College is a blur. It goes by so fast.
Yeah.
And so those 4 years went by quick. But I had a lot of success in and out of the pool. And I was pre-med and was taking the MCAT and applying to medical schools. And just for fun, my friend and I took a summer job at an amusement park, diving in what you would call a very low budget circus show, in which we lit ourselves on fire and jumped in the water and did dilly dives and choreography. And, we're at this amusement park in Indiana, and it's a 15-minute bad to the bone stunt show with classic rock, and it's wakeboarding, water skiing, jet skis, and diving. Yeah, it was awesome. And it was really just like, this is just for fun for the summer. Like, okay, I'm basically done with diving. I'm gonna hang up the suit. I'm gonna have some fun. I'm gonna go to medical school, and Dr. Dave is down the road, and that's my path. Because it was always very structured growing up.
Correct.
I mean, you can imagine playing 10 different sports and being committed to diving and arduous schooling and stuff like that. My life was very structured.
Rigorous.
And so the circus diving turned into us finding out about the Red Bull Cliff Diving World Series. So I graduated college in 2011, and the Red Bull Series started in 2009, and it really put cliff diving on the map in a new way that had never been seen before. Because cliff diving, if you think about it, could be the oldest extreme sport in the world. It has no equipment. It's just, as long as people have been around and there have been cliffs to jump off of, people have been jumping off cliffs.
So epic.
And, now I'm fortunate to do this as my career full time. And I've been to some incredible places all over the world. And we always find these like new ancient spots where the old tribes would jump from the cliffs and show their bravery to their king or the warriors or the tribe. And yeah, it's cliff diving has been around for millennia.
What an epic way to see a country from the locals' perspective. Have them bring you to a place where their kings have jumped to show their village their bravery. And to just see like some of the pictures that you've posted, you're jumping into something that it does not look like a sane person is going to jump. But the bravery that takes, I mean, my goodness, man, it's incredible. And to be able to do something that came from a random fair,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of the beauty of the way that God works, is just divinely pulling you in ways that look at you now. I mean, you're about to go on a pretty epic trip if you want to go into what's going to be your summer. Going
Exactly.
into a Red Bull excursion.
For sure. Yeah. And so, I joined the Red Bull Cliff Diving World Series in 2012. I put medical school on the back burner.
I'll be waiting for you.
Yeah, right. School's always there.
Yep.
Stay in school, kids. It is important.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, this has been my life now for the past 10 years. And while it is not nearly as structured as it used to be, it is still something I've crafted and have learned to love, and I couldn't imagine life in any other way. And like you say, God pulls you in crazy directions, and I would have no idea that this is something that I would be doing if you would have asked me, even when I was in college finishing up my diving career. Like if you would have said, "Oh, you'll be a professional cliff diver in years," and that's what I'd be like, "No way!" Like one, that's crazy,
Right.
and two, like no way.
Right.
But yeah, so now the year for me is basically two big milestones, and right now, like late spring, early summer, is getting ready to take off for the season.
Yep.
Because the Red Bull Cliff Diving World Series is, around 8 events spread out from May through November or so, all around the world, mostly in Europe, but we hit a couple of the other continents as well. And then there's a handful of invitationals or World Cups, World Championships along the way, depending on the year and the organizers and what we can get done.
So how can people follow your journey in regards to making sure you're placing or taking home gold?
Exactly. So the Red Bull Cliff Diving World Series is covered very well, and that's on redbullcliffdiving.com, or they have their own social platforms, Red Bull Cliff Diving on, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all those kinds of things.
Cool.
And they do a great job capturing the images. Like you said, they do some really cool content, and I've
Epic.
been fortunate to do some awesome projects on the side of not just the competitions, but cool projects on the side, groups and individual things. So yeah, you can catch all the action there.
Stoked to follow the journey. I can say I've never watched professional cliff diving. And in the Olympics, when the diving would come on, I had no real affinity towards it, but now I am a diving fan.
We got one more. And yeah, I mean, we're going to try to get you to Italy, where the event in September is in Polignano Amari, down south, where your family is close.
Bellissimo.
Mhm.
Bellissimo. Yeah, the beauty of this world, how vast it is the more I've grown, the more I realize it's not that big. And we live in such a blessed time to be able to go to the other side of the world and touch people's lives with the way that we live. And I think you and I live a very similar life in regards to taking our health, our wellness, as not just a priority, but like a lifestyle. I think it bleeds into every facet of our lives. And the more that I've developed a discipline towards showing up for myself, the more effortless it's becoming to show up for others. And I think, to just hear like how beautifully random your path kind of laid out for you. It's kind of cool to see that in the way that life moves, sometimes people try to hold on to the reins and they try to control it a little too much. And I think that's where, for me, faith and just being able to realize that sometimes life is showing you the path to take. And if you take the hands off the reins and you just trust that you're being divinely guided, like, it's beautiful to see where you can end up. And kind of tying into where we met, I met at Coachella.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I've talked about it with a couple of the other podcasters. It was an interesting experience for me. I had never been to a music festival of that scale. And it was Easter weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the pull of desire to be with family and celebrate the resurrection. And then I was also like very happy to be with friends and meeting new friends. And again, God working in beautiful ways, bringing brothers, not only yourself, but all the other homies, KJ, Chuan, having True Brothers, Mike, and all the others that were there.
Shout out to the boys.
Shout out to the squad. We wanted to touch real quick. I've talked about my experience with it. It was a mixed experience. There was times of true bliss, and there were times of I'd look around and I'd just see people who seemed disconnected, who seemed like they were trying to escape or use drugs or alcohol as a form of a Band-Aid. When in reality, I feel like those festivals and what we're going to try and create in regards to like more spiritual, more intentional festivals. What was your intention going into Coachella, and could you elaborate a little bit about like music and what it means to want to experience something that is hard to describe in words, a music festival?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, people go in with different intentions and have crazy different experiences.
Right.
I've been to a lot of festivals. I've been to a lot of big festivals.
Yeah.
And I would say, in my young 20s, I was probably part of that crew that was going just to escape and just to enjoy and using substances to do whatever.
Right.
But the older that I've gotten, I go to way fewer festivals and less shows. But I have a much more meaningful and enjoyable experience because I have a different intention and a different takeaway and a different experience while I'm there.
Yeah.
And so Coachella wasn't actually supposed to happen for me this year.
Epic.
I had bought tickets with my ex when we were together at the time. And, when it came time to be at Coachella, I wasn't planning on going. I was going to sell the tickets and just not worry about the weekend, get ready for the big trip coming up. But I couldn't sell the tickets. And, maybe this is, again, one of those God works in mysterious ways.
Come on.
And the world was showing me that I should just go and make the most of this opportunity.
Right.
And so, yeah, I ended up going with a good friend who works at the diving pool with me and his crew. I didn't know anybody in that group of people besides the one guy that I was going with.
Wow.
And, we were kind of on different schedules and different pages. So every day I drove to the festival by myself. And I went to the first show, Purple Disco Machine, and that's where I met KJ and Gabby.
Yep.
And they were the impetus and the connection to the whole crew and the family that we have now formed,
Gosh.
which is just insane and amazing.
So awesome, dude.
And so yeah, like I have always been drawn towards music. And it has been something that just vibrates in and out of me. And I think it's such a cool element that brings people together. Being on the dance floor is a special thing, you know, and it's a place where you can express yourself and be free, and you can be in that flow state where you're not worried about anything else. It's
Totally.
just true, pure consciousness and presence, which
Without
is
doubt.
yeah, which is beautiful and amazing. And it's an opportunity to meet people like the family that we have now created.
Truly. When I
Um,
think of heaven, I think of a dance floor. I think of musical instruments. I think of high vibrational frequency. I think of people truly in the moment and just like our bodies to feel the feeling of free movement to the sounds that are moving you. There's nothing like it, man. There's nothing like it.
Agreed.
And like you said, to see really it's what I learned from Coachella is its intentionality, like going into something with the intention of escaping. That's
Hmm.
exactly what you're going to see on the external.
Totally.
And when you go into it with an intention of I want to see musicians living their dream, I want to listen to music that moves me, I want to meet people that help me to become who it is that I'd love to become, and surround myself with people who I want to surround myself with. It's like though that is your reality. So it was an amazing experience of internal becoming your external. And so if one person is suffering, we're all suffering, but we have this opportunity of shining inward, outward, and allowing others who might be in that space of loneliness or despair or confusion to see that, gravitate towards it, and change their experience, which has bled back into Los Angeles and what we're doing here. And right when we got back, we had an amazing event at your place, and ice baths, music, workouts, nutrition,
All the good stuff.
and yeah, man, I think the way of life of health and wellness and what it's become for me
Hmm.
as a kind of a guide. It's like we were talking about earlier. It's not a way of life. It's literally it is who you are.
Hmm.
And so I think that was something that we were embodying at Coachella.
100%. Yeah. And you've said this before, just previously at the start of this podcast, the more you've focused and grown inward, hey, you've been more open and available to help outward. And I think actually pre-birthday, when you first came over with Mike and we were checking out the spot, we were talking about you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
And so the more you can fill yourself up and the more fulfilled and purposeful and the more access you have to your best self, the more available you're going to be a leader and to be helpful to others.
Amen.
And that's where music can fit in. And that's where we connected, and that's where you can grow, and that's where you can make those relationships. And that's what Coachella was about this year. And I mean, you know, I've been to 7 or 8 Coachellas, and this one's going to go towards the top of the list.
That's
You know,
awesome.
and it's because of people like you and people like KJ and Gabby and Twan and Mike and the whole crew, and the experiences, and the music was incredible. I mean,
Totally.
Saturday, going from
That was an
Amber
all-time
Mark
day.
to Masego to Ellen Paratrice was like the 3 hitters right in a row, and it was incredible.
Totally. And to
So
see
yeah,
divinity shine through the performers, like it was amazing throughout the day. You know, you're kind of going to different stages, and sometimes you didn't recognize names, and to just go where you felt pulled, and to see certain people who maybe this was their first time performing in front of a crowd of that magnitude, and to see them own that moment,
oh, so cool.
and to trust that all the work that they had done up to that moment led them to be able to shine. And specifically, I'm trying to remember the name of the group, but this young girl, she was probably 22 years old. I think her crew was from England, and she was so ecstatic. Rock band, they're jumping around, having a good time. She's like, "Can I stage dive? I don't know if I could stage dive." She stage dove into the crowd, got carried to the back of the stage,
Yes.
back to the front, and to just see the joy, the pure joy of what music can bring.
Love
Of
that.
like, yeah, if you're going there and you're taking this or you're taking that, okay, so be it. No judgment, but there's such a way of a natural high that music brings that
For sure.
is really, really beautiful. And I think in regards to health and wellness, it's the exact same thing. The amount of perfection within our bodies, of being able to really hone in on this like science project that
Mm-hmm.
we own, and see the way that you eat, the things you consume, not only on a food and drink level, but on a mental level,
Totally.
and then the exercise that you put into your body. What is it like training for cliff diving? Like, is there a specific style of training that you gravitate towards, or is there like something set in stone that you stay?
Yeah, there's a little bit of both. There's definitely functional sport specific workouts.
Yeah.
Diving and cliff diving are very, very similar in the sense that you need strong, explosive legs to jump really high and handle the impact. We land feet first from 90 feet in the air. It's a very immense impact.
Gnarly.
You need to have a super strong core. You need to be agile to get in and out of twisting, flipping, tuck, pike positions. You need to be flexible, and yeah, you need to be strong. And most body types, I mean, most acrobatic sports, from diving, gymnastics, skiing, snowboarding, even ice skating, like you're going to see similar body types in all those kind of sports.
Right.
So we're not super tall and lanky. We're not huge and beefy. You're a little bit more compact, and you're very agile, explosive, but you got to be strong.
Right.
So that's where most of the workouts come. Now, the one thing I will say about cliff diving that's very different from traditional diving is we are in very uncontrolled, differing environments a lot of the time. And some days you'll be, jumping off a building in a downtown city where you have a very nice athletes area that's in a controlled spot, and you just got to walk to the roof and get on the platform and jump off, and it's not too bad. Other times we'll be at a remote island where there's no civilization nearby. You're out in the heat all day long. You're climbing cliffs. You're exposed. It can be windy. It can be rainy. And you got to be able to handle those things. So I do like to vary my workouts. And as one of my great strength coaches said, diversify your wheelhouse
Yes.
of tools and experiences so you can handle anything that's thrown at you.
Yes.
And that's something that I see you do all the time in life and in workouts. And I love that because, again, you want to be a leader, you want to help people. So the more full your cup, the more big your wheelhouse of experiences are, the more you can help people.
Totally.
So that's what I like to focus on in my training and in my research and my life and how I go about my day-to-day actions.
Right. Yeah, cross training is something that I implement into all of my clients' lives, because if you become stagnant in your training, you don't look forward to it. For me, I am stoked on riding my bike, and that was one of the first things that we did when we kicked it. Take the mountain bikes. What's the name of the trail?
Ishibashi, baby.
Ishibashi. If you know, you know. Oh my goodness, that was awesome. Palos Verdes, just overlooking the glory. California, so blessed.
We're lucky.
But, lifting weights, a lot of people look at that as the only way that they can get fit, and it turns them off because it's intimidating. Gym
Exactly.
environment, there's people who don't even know where to begin. And so a lot of my clients are in their beginning stages of fitness. And, in LA, it's all about influencers and looking good and this and that. But I almost prefer working with people who are intimidated by it, because I help them to look at the simple steps of creating a new habit. And changing your perspective from intimidated to encouraged. And so I see that in you and in a lot of what you do, but just to go about your training in a joyous way and to inspire people to have fun with it.
Of course.
It's a light bulb moment, and it's so fun to see people change their perspective to, oh, I have to go to the gym, or, oh, I have to go for a walk, or, oh, I kind of want to swim, but I don't really, all the excuses that come forward within the first 2 weeks of building a new habit. And then to be a facilitator of that and to be a support system for that is why I love what I do. And I think it's cool to meet people in similar mindsets like yourself, to just inspire others to be their best selves.
Exactly.
And the health and wellness journey is also one that never ends. Like, I'm a student forever, constantly evolving in my own understanding of what it means to be healthy, and continuing to evolve in what foods work for me and what foods don't. Do you have a specific diet that you kind of lock in on, or is your diet more free flowing?
It is free flowing. But at the same time, I do take nutrition very seriously. If there were a diet to say, what do I try to follow the most? It'd probably be paleo.
Mm.
And I'm trying to make it more plant-based the older I get.
Yep.
But at the same time, I have cheat days. I enjoy sweets.
Yep.
I like cheeseburgers and pizza.
That's the Italian in you, bro.
Right, exactly. I like wine. I
Yep.
like a good cocktail. So, I'm not going to stay abstinent of anything in that realm.
Right.
But, I try to hit that 90-95% range of eating very healthy, whole foods, not too much, mostly plants.
Right.
And I think if you can stick to that, you're gonna be golden.
Totally.
I think the health and wellness industry is so big and very intimidating, like you've said, whether it comes to exercise or nutrition. But there are some very simple staples we can follow.
Definitely.
And with nutrition, I'm taking this from Ben Bergeron and Chasing Excellence, and he's a big CrossFit coach. But yeah, it's eat not too much, mostly plants, whole foods.
Done
Keep
deal.
it simple,
Done deal.
And so that's where I like to try to stay in my lane if I can.
I think the overcomplication of the start of the journey won't allow you to start it. One of my favorite quotes is in order to gain inspiration, you have to start the act. The inspiration doesn't come until the act starts. So like
Mhm.
subtle shifts in the foods you eat and noticing the way that the food makes you feel. Because I truly believe that nutrition is 60% of it. Your output in your workouts is 40, and that's kind of an implementation towards true change. And I think for anybody listening out there that wants to start their health and wellness journey,
Mhm.
first of all, come to some of the events that we're putting together,
Absolutely.
and really find ways to simplify your eating, your workouts, and find other people that do those similar things. Because it's hard to make change if everyone around you is stuck in habits that are deteriorating.
Oh, for sure. And the crew is important.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you hear things like you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. Social contagion is a very real thing. You are going to think, act, behave in very similar ways of the people you are around the most.
yes,
And so, you don't have to cut people out of your lives, but if you're trying to elevate yourself, you got to elevate your crew as well. And that's, again, going back to this connection that we've made and the family that we're building. That's what I love about this, because I get to elevate my crew while building myself at the same time.
and that leads into one of the hardest things to do is to say no, or to maybe quote unquote let someone down by not going with what they want to do, but being able to stand firm in what you know is best for you,
Hmm.
which kind of ties into divine masculinity and what it means to be a man in a society that's starting to demonize masculinity in a lot of different ways. I feel super called to redefining what divine masculine is and to have conversations with many people about what that means. So quickly, or more in depth, what does divine masculinity mean to you as someone who I truly think embodies a lot of those qualities?
Well, I appreciate that. And it's funny because you brought this up with Chaz, and we've been talking about it a little bit over the last couple weeks.
Shout out, Chuck.
Shout out. Divine masculinity. That term is not something that I was really familiar with before you guys started talking about it. I mean, I know the words, and I have an idea of where you're going with this. And I love what you say of we should redefine what masculinity means in a culture right now that is demonizing it.
Correct.
And because unfortunately there have been a lot of terrible examples of what men have done.
Correct.
And there are, my ex used to say all the time, men are the worst. And I would be like, yeah, actually you're kind of right. But we need to redefine this,
Totally.
and that's what me, you and Chuck and Mike were all talking about. Like, we need to set a new example.
Correct.
And it's crazy that we're talking about this now, because I'd say, oh man, probably like 7 or 8 years ago when I first moved to LA, and I was really working on myself and I was trying to become, the best version of myself. I had this phrase of people that I looked up to, specifically male role models, that I would be like, oh, that guy, he's the man. Or like I would meet somebody like, dude, you're the man.
Yeah.
And so I had this creed in me that was called Be the Man. And
That's
it
so
was,
awesome.
it was the reminder to me to be my best self. And I actually, for a couple years, wrote BTM on my wrist
So
right here
cool.
almost every day, especially on the weekends when I was trying to, drink less and be more mindful about nutrition and recovery. And those were the situations that it was tough, on a late Friday night or Saturday night when people are partying and that kind of thing. Like, you can easily get caught into those destructive behaviors.
Totally.
And so I did this for years. And since then, into my late 20s and my early 30s, it became my lifestyle and my routine. So I didn't have to write "Be the Man" that much
That's
anymore
amazing.
on my wrist. But I started doing it again just in the last couple of weeks because you started talking about this. And
Dude,
in addition to just
that's
the
epic.
phrase and just the BTM on my wrist, I actually wanted to. I had always told myself I was going to write like an actual creed, like a one pager of who the man is,
Wow.
because the man is not any specific type of person. It doesn't even need to be a male. The man ideal, like what I'm talking about here, can be a man or a woman.
Correct.
It can be anybody from any walk of faith, gender, nationality, anything.
Right.
It is a person who follows a set of ideals and characteristics, divine masculinity. What we're talking about here, the man is someone who is hardworking, disciplined, kind, loving, selfless, courageous, compassionate, those kind of things. And so, honestly, I'm kudos to you because you are an
Thanks, brother.
inspiration. You are one of these
Well, that
people that I
sounds
would
like
say
Jesus Christ to me.
exactly the oldest example in the book.
Yes.
Jesus Christ was the man.
Correct.
He set that example.
Correct.
And so bringing me in and talking about this is the impetus for me to finally write this credo. And I've been
Amen,
going
bro.
it through it in my head again. But no, getting back to what you're
That's
saying, like
amazing.
we do need to set an example.
Right.
And we've been talking about, can you imagine being a young boy growing up in the times that we are now with everything at your fingertips on your smartphone, being caught in this world of so many evils and temptations out there.
Distractions.
So distractions, instant gratifications.
Deception.
It's so easy to get caught up in that stuff.
For sure.
And I'm 33 and I grew up like right before the internet hit high school.
Right there with you.
Like it was there. Like we used the internet in high school and it was a tool and that kind of stuff. But I didn't have Instagram on my phone in high school or grade school. I didn't have Facebook, thank goodness.
Don't you think that's a huge reason why we are the way that we are? We had to develop people skills. We had to develop ways of communicating. And you're 4 years older than me, but I remember it was like early high school when that stuff was implemented, but I was so grateful to have middle school and elementary school without that.
Exactly.
Because I wasn't afraid of approaching an adult and talking to them as if I was equal. And that's a huge reason why I feel so compelled to be that source of light for not only young boys, but young girls like coming up. They need to see an example of how to be and ways that they can not disconnect, because the shadow and the darkness is within all of us, but to realize what is beneficial and what is not. And
Exactly.
that's, I think, such an important part of this movement that I feel compelled to create, and really is inspired by my faith.
Love
It's
that.
inspired by who Jesus Christ was as an embodiment of all of those qualities and more that you were talking about. And the more that I'm in my Bible, the more that I'm reading this wisdom. And then on the other end, the more that I'm around these beautiful communities of yoga and spirituality, they have this similar embodiment, but to be able to bring Christ and my beliefs into those realms without this cast of judgment onto people about what they're wrong for and what I'm right for, I think that's not necessarily what Jesus was doing. And so I think that kind of ties into what divine masculinity is. But then on the opposite end of that, how do you step into a place of holding people accountable, of not being a yes man, not telling people what they want to hear, being able to have the courage to say, hey, that's not your best self. Hey, these are things that you should not do, and actually you cannot do. If you're going to hang out with me, you can't do these things. And if you do, I'm going to wish you well, but I'm going to keep my ship floating. Like, how do you embody those aspects of, I love the Be the Man, bro, BTM. And I'm excited to read that pager, man. And I feel blessed and honored that you shared that with me, because it's just further inspiration for me to continue on the path I am. And to just talk a little bit about that, of what you do to be that type of an influence in your work, in your family, in your relationships. How do you be the man?
Exactly. Well, and it started with the passion and the influence and the motivation for it was really to be my best self, mostly for personal growth, but also for performance. And I'm coming from a cliff diving standpoint. I want to be the man so that I can perform at my highest level when I'm in competitions.
Right.
And that takes a year-round training schedule. So you got to be at your best all the time.
Right.
But then that started to bleed into other areas of my life. And the more I went down this high performance, best self field, I realized now that I've built myself up and I feel really good about it, now I can be an example. Now I can be a leader. Now I can help other people. And so it went from a very purely personal performance-based thing into a leadership role and a helper role, a service role.
Right.
And that's where, my continuing education of the leaders that I have now chosen in the high performance field or in the spirituality field, in the mental health field, this is stuff that I'm using for my own personal growth. But now that my cup is so full, I can help share and lead others in the way that I feel best and that I feel called to.
Yeah.
And so, it's funny when we were talking about this and this podcast and the whole theme about this is having a spiritual foundation. And from that, we can then grow in those other areas personally, mentally, physically, emotionally, relationship wise. It really is true. And we've talked about how we were both raised in a very strict religious space, and we kind of veered off the path and are now coming back.
Correct.
And so I love that, I'm connecting people with people like you and the crew that we've formed in the family, because it's really hitting home the spiritual side to me that I have neglected for a long time.
Right.
And so it really is putting all of these pieces of the puzzle together.
Right.
To access my best self, to then be that example that I want to be and that help, because I wouldn't be here without the help that I was given. Totally. I had so many, again, it takes a village. I had so many great helpers, teachers, coaches, mentors, role models, my family, my friends. And so I want to be that person to everybody else, because I had, I hit the jackpot. I got the lottery.
Correct.
And I get to live my dream life because I was helped in so many ways.
And that can lead into people who don't have positive role models, who don't have a father figure in their life.
Exactly.
Search for role models that are like yourself, willing and able to be of a support system for them. I think so many people who didn't quote unquote hit the jackpot use that as something that debilitates their ability to take that first step. And we were talking about earlier, the inspiration comes once the act starts. So I pray so often for people who weren't given the opportunities, who don't have a father to look up to, who don't have coaches, who don't have these, that they can find one, because that spark happens with one mentor. And then they become inspired to be mentors for their friends. And they're able to say no. Hey, man, do you want to go get high? Hey, man, look at that girl. Hey, man, you should watch porn, do this and that. It's like building the mental fortitude to understand and see what a good man, and then for women, what a good woman, what is divine feminine. And it's, dude, the calling that is being bestowed upon all of God's children right now, because we live on earth. This is a kingdom of a lot of darkness. And I think it's so amazing to be in this time, to see the courageous, fearless shepherds step into that role of, you know what, the world's telling me to do this. I'm going to do this, not for myself, slightly for myself, but to be of positive influence and benefit to the people who didn't have what I had, who don't know where to turn, especially for kids, where it's like you're doing your school online, so you're already on the computer, you're distracted by social media, you're distracted by TVs. Like when you and I were kids, you had to drag us inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another big calling that I feel very compelled to pursue, is outreach, finding ways to get kids to be kids. And I think society has kids growing up so fast nowadays, but for a kid listening maybe that doesn't have a father or doesn't have an influence, what would be your biggest inspiration or biggest kind of directional cue towards how they could go about taking those first steps towards living a life that they should be proud of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tough. I think, like you were saying, it starts with action.
Yep.
and keep looking, because there are positive sources out there. You just got to find them.
Yep.
So within yourself, like finding out who you are, what you want to stand for, what you want to do, get involved in those things, those type of activities, those types of communities, because they are out there.
Totally.
Maybe it could be really hard to find. Like if you're in a tough spot with tough surroundings and lack of resources and lack of support, it's going to be very, very hard. But I promise you, there are people out there that do want to help and do want to contribute to you making it to where you want to go and reach your highest potential.
Totally.
So I think it starts with action. Get out there, find the things and the people and the activities that really hit home with you. And
Definitely.
again, like try to level up your squad, you know? So whether it's your peer group or your cohorts or whatever, and finding that role model, that mentor, that coach, that father figure, if it's not directly accessible to you within your family or within close, proximity, it's going to be out there somewhere.
Totally.
So look for it.
Yeah.
Because yeah, again, like I would love to be that person for anybody. You would love to be that person for anybody. And there are good people out there.
Totally.
Like you were saying, there's a lot of darkness and a lot of distraction and temptation and evils out there. But there's a lot of good too.
Amen.
So you just got to find it, because the communities are being built by people like you, Kyle, and what we're trying to do here. And there's a lot of good shepherds out there.
Amen. Just like we were talking about with the Coachella experience that I had of my internal becoming my external, you have to start with subtle victories. So stop hanging around people that are doing bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Stop watching porn. Stop doing mind-altering substances. Stop spending time frivolously and realize that every single moment is a blessing. How are you sharpening your steel? And it's these little things that turn into big, big changes in not only what you do, but who you are from a character standpoint. And I would say, like, getting into a church or reaching out to the YMCA or different things that really they're, like you said, it's so beautiful to hear those words of encouragement, because yes, this world is dark, but there is so much light in this world. And I think the big deceiver does not want us to see the light, which is why when you turn on the news, you only see the despair and the darkness. And it's, man, living in this time, it's a blessing. And it's also something that we are in spiritual warfare right now, like I've never seen before. And we won't go too deep into the COVID rabbit hole, but we are conduits, and we are able to create health pretty simply through subtle shifts in our daily habits. And kind of talking on the spiritual realm, we'll get a little deeper into spirit and what you and I share in regards to growing up in a family that was Christian, had a way, but felt very boxed, felt very controlled, felt very judged, at least for me. And then being a product of society and seeing the music I was listening to, the movies I was watching, the people I was surrounding myself with, doing things that from a pleasure standpoint filled my cup.
Mm-hmm.
But from a longevity standpoint and a soul space, I felt emptier than I had ever felt. So as I got into my early 20s and I was working with a brewery and brewing beer and drinking often and smoking weed and frivolous with the women that I was hanging around and kind of talking with the boys in a banterish way rather than an uplifting, inspiring way,
Mm-hmm.
you just start to feel as though you're living in this mirage, this kind of hamster wheel type existence of doing the same things in different settings and just kind of digging your grave. And I felt called by what I know as the Holy Spirit to say, I have chosen you. I have given you these gifts. Don't slap me in the face. Like, you have things that you need to be doing, and on the path that you're going, you will not do them. This is the path I've laid before you. These are the steps. And that helped me to develop a deeper prayer, a deeper longing to get into my Bible and get back into church. And just by doing those two things, getting back into my Bible, getting back into church, I have met countless mentors, leaders, and inspirational people, both men and women, that have inspired me to take those subtle change shifts that have turned into drastic shifts where I haven't smoked or drank in 3 months. I haven't been masturbating on porn over a year. I feel compelled to share this story because it's possible. And I was in a dark, dark place thinking, does God exist? Why would God put all of this tragedy and heartbreak and deception and corruption on this earth? It's not him that's doing it. It's us that's doing it. So if you want to tie your, yeah, I mean, it's a big topic, man. Spirituality is a big topic.
huge.
So what you feel compelled to share, please do. But, your journey in faith, where you've been, where you're at, and where you see yourself going.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for sharing your side.
Of course.
It actually makes me feel good about opening up and sharing mine, because this is a hard topic.
Yeah.
Because I've gone down a very windy road, one would say, because like you said, I grew up in a very strict religious Christian household. I went to private Catholic schooling from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Yep.
And at the
Wow.
same time, we were going to Sunday service. My mom's family was actually Eastern Orthodox. So I was really going to 2 Christian churches. 5 days a week was school, Roman Catholic, and Sundays, Eastern Orthodox. And so, something I grew up with, and I actually did really like. And I liked the feeling of the church, and I did like the example that was set forth by Jesus Christ. I didn't know at the time what I was going to believe further down the road, but I really did attach myself to the example that Jesus Christ left, and just being a good person. And I went to a Jesuit high school. The motto is "Men for Others." I liked all that.
Yeah.
But then again, like you, I grew up in today's society,
Right.
in the 2000s, where you're watching movies and music and pop culture that is way more about instant gratification and selfish pleasures.
Right.
And it's super easy to fall in that trap as a young man.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started to veer away, through high school and college, and not sure if I believe in God. What is the point? Why is the world so evil? Why are there so many troubles? If God truly exists, why would
Wow.
we have to go through all this? So yeah, that's when I started to really doubt and really struggle. But I did still have this what I thought was spiritual connection.
Right.
So I kind of left organized religion, but then really started to want to find a spiritual connection, because there has to be more, or I think there's more. I want there to be more. And you feel it when you connect with people, or you connect with the universe. There is something there. And so that's when I started, along with being the man and my personal growth and research, I did start to go down the path of learning about Buddhism and learning about meditation and mindfulness. And that's where my spiritual journey kind of restarted. And so, I think through COVID, I made leaps and bounds in my spiritual journey. I really like the app Waking Up. I like Sam Harris. And coming into a more spiritual center for myself has, again, like we said, set a spiritual foundation that lets me run on all cylinders for all the other areas that I want to grow in. So now, being with somebody like you, who talks about finding his way back to the Christian faith and the Bible and Jesus, is really inspiring for me, because I feel like I could come back and be more in that realm again. I don't know what my personal belief journey is going to be further down the road.
Yeah.
I still struggle with believing if there's an all-powerful creator.
Right.
And, the man Jesus Christ, I think, definitely lived. The evidence is there.
Yeah.
Was he the Son of God? And with the miracles and the resurrection and heaven and hell and stuff like that, that's still stuff that I struggle with.
Existential questions.
Exactly. But I do, again, I love the example that he set. I love being I'm glad I came from the Jesuit faith and education of being a man for others and being for service, and living in a world where I think we do have spiritual connection.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm stoked to come to your Bible studies, and stoked to build this spiritual community, and really excited about developing further connections in this realm of my life.
Totally.
Because I've hit so hard on the physical, mental health space, and we talk about this realm of health and wellness, where I want to get into the spiritual and the emotional and the relationship wise, and I think this is a big place to do it.
Definitely.
And
what a time to do it.
Exactly. So this is new for me. Honestly, when you invited me on this podcast, I got a little anxious. Like, I was stoked and I was honored, but I was like, oh shoot, like I'm gonna have to talk about my spiritual journey, and I don't know what I want to
Right.
say or where I'm at, because I'm still figuring this out.
Totally. And
Um,
that's okay.
exactly, and that's okay. And I think that's something that we talk about, again, being the positive, divine, masculine role model. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's
Right.
okay to figure this out as you go.
Mm.
We are works in progress and masterpieces at the same time as we go through life.
Whew.
We have to figure this out, but be our best selves at the same time.
Hallelujah, bro.
And whether that comes from believing in your higher power, praying to God and Jesus as your example, or just having a community and a spiritual connection to those around you and having positive influences and examples and being of service and helpful to others, whatever that means, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Totally.
So that's why, again, I'm honored to sit here and be with you and talk about this kind of stuff, because I'm still figuring it out.
And it plants little seeds. I am no saint. I fall short every day. But for people who are searching, or for people who don't even know where to start, I always recommend sit in stillness. Like you're talking about meditation, mindfulness. Same thing. When I started practicing yoga for the first time, I got to see my relationship with God differently than I ever had, because I was able to sit still. Whenever I'd be in church, I kind of had this subtle anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where that came from as a kid. I would always be like, okay, I'm here. My parents told me I'm supposed to be here. I kind of understand what's going on, but where's the depth, I can't hear God talking to me. Like, I want to have that conversation with God. First time I meditated, after a 45-minute epic vinyasa class where I'm sweating, I'm physically beaten up, you have to surrender in Shavasana pose.
Mm-hmm.
But you can call it resting pose. Doesn't have to be. I think Christians get so caught up on, well, you're practicing yoga, you're worshiping the sun gods and this and that. It's like, you can create intentionality with whatever it is you do. So it was an opportunity for me to feel the presence of God saying what it was that I needed to hear in that moment. And so for people, like, prayer is a two-way conversation. So when you go into your prayer, or when you go into even just your stillness, your meditation, your breath work, with zero expectation, opening yourself up to the possibility that you will be divinely guided, that God loves you enough to talk to you out of the 8.5 billion people there are in this world. And that, to me, is like the most freeing, comforting. All of my problems and stresses, they dissipate immediately when I think about my Creator taking time. Because in eternity, what is time? So the conceptualization of that is an hour and a half podcast conversation on its own right, but that we are loved, that we are divinely guided, and that the opportunities are all around us to develop it's a connection with yourself first. It's an understanding of your own darkness, your own temptation, your own fear, your own insecurities, all the things that hold you back from even taking that first step towards creating a relationship and loving yourself. And our society tells us so much how loving yourself is egotistical or wrong, because of the vanity and because of the really just the examples that have been set for so long. And that's why we're stepping into this role model coaching embodiment of what it means to be spiritual. It's loving yourself the way that God loves us.
Love that.
And then loving your neighbors even if they wrong you.
That's a tough one.
That
is the way to go.
The toughest. I mean, when I think of that, I think of my bike being stolen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, seeing my bike lock clipped, bike is gone. Rage immediately.
Of course.
I want to go on a headhunt. And then God works in such beautiful ways of literally filling my spirit with forgiveness. And I've always come to this, it helps keep me sane and not want to do bad things. But I say, man, I hope that this, because I've had many bikes stolen, I hope that this bike helps this person to get into shape and to change their life for the better. Because it helps me to just let it go.
That's a good way to think about it.
It's a thing.
Of course.
And I'm in a place where I work very hard. I'm able to get a new bike. But I think that is the embodiment of faith and of spirituality. It's not necessarily holding a grudge or, on the other end, turning the cheek, but being able to be steadfast and courageous in calling out darkness when you see it, holding people accountable, and that starts with yourself.
For sure.
And so, as we walk on this path, anyone listening, I recommend you don't have to have this expectation of what it's supposed to be. That is between you and God. And going into it with this yearning, I wrote down, you said, I know there's more and I want there to be more. And where does that come from? I think that's the subtle pull, that divine guider, the guardian angels saying, there is more. And I want you to feel that there's more so that you are divinely guided towards your purpose, towards the reason you're here. It helps us to look at this world without even seeing the darkness. You walk into a dark room, as a light, it's lit up. And darkness cannot exist in the presence of light. So the more that we embody our light, the more that we're able to walk into dark situations and be fearless. And it's got me fired up, bro.
Love that.
But that's why we are doing what we're doing, and I feel so honored that God brought us into each other's lives, and that the best is yet to come.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, and I like what you said about, using the bike as the example, and because I think this is one of those hardest things, and being able to push through adversity and be your best self when you're challenged or when evil has struck you or
Yep.
someone has lashed out at you. That is a true test.
Yes.
And that's where I really think, if everybody were able to reach their highest selves, we wouldn't have these problems.
No.
We wouldn't have so much hate and violence and evil and greed and lust and all this stuff. But there are these problems out there,
Right.
and we have to help somewhere. We have to start somewhere. And so if we can build this community, if we can be the better examples, if we can take that higher road of not lashing out, of not getting revenge, of not, being overrun and not being a good example, we can help everyone come up. And that's where it's got to start, because there is, unfortunately, a lot of darkness, and this world badly needs shining light and positivity and love and joy and good examples. And that's what I've seen with this community that you're building, and with the family that we've now just started to create, right? And I'm so stoked about that. And again, yeah, to people who are unsure or not where, where are we? How do I get started? It starts with action. Get out there, look for the right people, look for the right things, join in, because there are, we're in Los Angeles, but there are communities like this all over the world.
Totally.
And yeah, man, it gets me fired up too.
I had a friend, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but she was saying, what if the return of Christ's second coming, we're in this time of revelation, the lifting of the veil, what if Christ's consciousness is spewed through you and I? His return is us embodying Christ consciousness. So like you saying that, and to talk earlier, like the simplicity of our health and wellness journey, the simplicity of our spiritual journey. We don't have to overcomplicate loving ourselves, loving God, loving our neighbor. It's really simple. And when I think of heaven, it even says it in the Bible that God gives the angels free will, but they have learned and they have the wisdom to know right from wrong, true north from not, and they live in accordance. But then you have someone like Lucifer, who had everything, was given the blessings of looks, strength, and it wasn't enough. So in our own lives, when we're able to see all that we have, but still have this quench for more, it's just that check-in, and it's that exchanging expectations for gratification, gratitude. Even if it seems like life's working against you, how can you take a step outside of your existence and live in a way that is graceful, is grateful, and is, at the end of the day, just easy? I feel like life doesn't have to be complicated. Life doesn't have to be painful if you change your internal. And I'm gonna open up a talked about this on a couple of other pods. I was in Texas, and God works divinely. I was walking with my mom and dad. We're talking about Clarissa and where my life's at and where it's going. And I was talking to them about the Fearless Shepherds and about the community that I'm building and how emboldened and inspired I'm becoming to like minister and talk to people about faith, when for most of my life I was so ashamed of telling people my beliefs because I'd be labeled this or labeled that. And my mom's like, "Oh, there's a book share. You can take a book and give a book." And I was like, "Oh, check it out." I opened it up, and it's called Foundations of Our Faith, and it's a shepherd leading a flock.
Amazing.
And the Good Shepherd Institute, I was just blown away. And I've opened this thing
Meant
up,
to
and
be.
there is so much divinity in this. Shout out to where's the
Is it one author or is it a collection of?
it's a collection. So
Oh,
the
cool.
Good Shepherd Institute, Christian Broadcasting Network in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Big shout out. Hope to meet you guys someday. Found this in Dallas, Texas, and Prosper.
Amazing.
Just in a take a book, give a book. I'm gonna have to go back, visit you guys, and leave a book. But it says in Matthew 5:16, Matthew, one of the disciples of Jesus, "Your light must shine before people so that they will see the good things you do and praise your Father in heaven." And so I've had people who are atheists, people who are, it doesn't matter, come up to me and say, "The way that you talk about your faith, the way that you go about treating other people, the way that you carry yourself, I'm not saying I'm a believer, but I look at things differently."
It makes you want to be better.
That's it.
And that's what I felt when I first met you and KJ, when I first met Gabby and Mike and the whole crew and Twan. I mean, that ball of light.
Twan, shout out.
Drop of gold. I mean, that's what it is, and that's what I was drawn to. Like every time I hang out with you, the way you talk, the way you act, it is inspiring, and it makes
Thanks,
me
bro.
want to be. It makes me want to be better, and that's exactly what that passage is saying. And whether or not I am truly aligned with the Christian faith like you are, or if I'm on my own path of spirituality,
Correct.
or anybody who's atheist, Buddhist, Muslim, whatever, if they meet you and they hang out with you, they are going to be inspired to be their best self. And that's where this whole thing is going, of changing the world to make it a better place than we found it. And that's what I love. And it's crazy that, again, we've only known each other a few weeks. We've only hung out a few times, but every time I hang out with you, it's like we've been brothers for a long time.
Amen.
Our whole lives have been leading up to this.
Kingdom come.
And that's what gets me fired up about being with you and building this community and sharing our stories and helping growing this community from the inside out, building ourselves up every day and building those around us. It's just, it's amazing.
And taking it one day at a time. Because we have big dreams, big aspirations, big goals, and those are good to have. Write those things down, but then come back to what is today. Today, I'm going to have a podcast with David. Today, I'm going to look back at all of the week's events, put together some things, promote for future. Today at 6, I'm going to have a Bible study. I'm going to talk to my family. Like the little things. And then in regards to implementation into people who are listening, like the subtle shifts that you make now. You don't have to wait. I'll get to it. You don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. Make the change now.
Absolutely.
And in a couple weeks, to see how much can change in your life, those couple weeks turn into a couple months. Those couple months turn into a year. To just understand what can happen in your life and how much power you possess to make those changes. Wrapping up, talking about goals for the summer for Mr. David Colturi.
Ooh.
Talking about goals for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And for people that are interested in your story and want to follow, how can they follow your story, brother?
Absolutely. Yeah. For people that want to follow, my main platform is Instagram at dcolturi. I am active on Facebook.
Colturi is spelled
Colturi. We'll be sure to visit Dazio and Polignano and all the spots in Italy.
Look forward to it.
We're gonna do that.
There are seeds being planted for a beautiful, beautiful retreat, health, wellness, spirituality, coming this fall. More to come on those details.
Absolutely. That's a goal. Put that on the goal sheet, people.
Done deal.
Italian resort retreat. But yeah, it's funny because diving for me has been such a long journey. I started when I was 5. I'm 33 now. I've been
Epic.
I've been diving for 28 years.
Little 5-year-old Colturi.
Oh, dude, you should see the old pictures of me in the Speedo. It's hilarious. But yeah, it's funny, and I still have goals and dreams, and I would love to be world champion, and
Come on.
I want the sport to get into the Olympics, which I don't think is, it's an if, it's really a when. Is it going to be before I retire? I don't know.
Gold medal
Um,
around your neck, bro.
it would be amazing.
Come on.
But again, like that's, it's funny because I've shifted over the years. Like that is a goal of mine, but success is in the journey, and I've already had it, and
Wow.
it's crazy because diving could be taken away tomorrow,
Right.
and life could be taken away tomorrow.
Right.
And I am so happy with what I've already done in life and diving, all that kind of stuff. I'm still a work in progress, and I'm going to continue to strive for my best self in and out of the water forever. But it's cool to think that I'm so satisfied with what has already been done. So right now for this year, I'm taking it one day at a time.
Yep.
I want to enjoy it and not take it for granted and still push myself to the level that I know I can compete at.
Right.
And cliff diving is incredibly competitive right now. There are guys out there that are doing insane dives. I mean, Aiden Heslop and Konstantin Popovici and Gary Hunt and Catalin Preda, like these guys are firing, and it's insane to even think that I'm on the same platform with these guys, and I know I can compete with them.
Right.
So I want to do my best diving, and I think it can be ahead of me. So I am looking to have my best season of cliff diving.
Let's go.
I'm going to earn my permanent spot back on the series, and I'm going to keep doing this for as long as I can do it. With that being said, I also want to grow personally, professionally, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. I want to hit all those pillars.
Yep.
And so I want to continue this path of growth and evolution with people like you and with the communities that I've found abroad. I'm going to be living in Austria again this summer. I can't wait to
So
meet up with
awesome.
Renee and my homies and my family out there. And I can't wait to get you guys to come over. KJ, Gabs, and Twan are coming over, and I'm trying to get you to come as well. So yeah, it's every year can be the best year, and every day can be your best day when you set intention
Hallelujah.
and when you focus on what matters and stay within what you can control. Stop focusing on the things you can't control,
Right.
and live your best day now.
Yep.
Go out there and start with action and get it done.
I have it on my whiteboard outside. I was doing daily quotes last year, and I changed the quote daily, and my clients all loved it. And this year, I said, make each day a new year.
Love it.
Because everybody has that New Year's resolution, and then February comes around, and they're like, I'll get to it next year. You don't have to wait until next year. Start now and see where you are at next week.
Exactly.
Don't also put these crazy expectations of like, okay, I'm going to do this for a year straight, see where I'm at, fizzles. I'm going to do this for 7 days straight. And that happens with good habits and then kicking bad habits.
Exactly.
Just start with a day. That day turns into 2 and 3 and
yeah, having that clarity. It's funny, the New Year's resolution thing. It is funny that so many people wait for that at December, January to think about it. But having clarity of who you want to be and what types of skills you want to sharpen and how you want to interact with those around you and how you want to serve and lead and influence those communities that you're in. This is something you can think about every day. This is something that you can set in the shower every morning. And that's where it starts. It starts with intention and then get to action. And I love that, and I've had a couple mentors and role models that I constantly look towards that help me set those for the day. And so yeah, that's where I'm at, man. I wanna reach my highest self, and I wanna share it and spread it, and bring people up with me.
what's glorious is you don't have to change a single thing.
Appreciate that, brother.
To know that you are on your way and to know that you've developed those habits for yourself and you're still a work in progress, like you said, we're never perfect. And if you ever think you're perfect, you should check yourself.
Absolutely.
As a teacher, it's been fun for me to grow and to work with more people and more clients, but it's inspired me to be more of a student and to sharpening iron, just finding ways to enjoy the process, but make sure that I am I am a part of the process, that I am the steerer of the process, and then even more so, letting go of the wheel and being steered by divinity. Absolute pleasure talking to you.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for having me.
I look forward to many a more conversations.
Me as well.
Many a more episodes on the Fearless Shepherds podcast.
Dude.
If you don't mind, I'm going to finish us with a prayer.
Let's do it.
Dear God, thank you so much for this blessed Sunday. Thank you so much for the brotherhood with my friend David, with just the light that you've bestowed upon him. I pray for his travels to Europe, that you keep him safe, you keep his team safe, and you help him to not only accomplish everything that you just flowed through his mouth during this beautiful conversation, but bless him even more so. Show him through your works the capacity of your love and the capacity of your blessings. I pray for his family. I pray for the second family that he's about to visit. And I pray for everyone involved in Red Bull and all the other organizations that are a part of this epic sport that I look forward to becoming a bigger fan of. I pray for myself. I pray for continued guidance. I pray for continued inspiration and consistency in the practices that I know are going to help me to become a better leader, better mentor, better minister of your word. And just continue to divinely guide each and every soul on this planet to soften their hearts and to open to what is possible, to creating that heaven on earth, and to living more in alignment with an understanding of what we're capable of as human beings. I don't think there's a limit to what our capacity really is, and I think it's beautiful that we're all stepping closer and closer towards what that capacity is. Help this day be blessed, and let us live moment by moment with gratitude. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brother. That was beautiful.
Thank you for being here. Another episode of the Fearless Shepherds podcast coming to a close. I look forward to the next. Stay blessed, my friends. It's amazing how quickly conversation goes when you're speaking about life and God. A lot of these questions that can spark fear, spark judgment. That's what this podcast is all about. Really, that's what life is all about, is to step into faith with a yearning for knowledge. So if you want to learn more, if you want to donate to the cause, my name is Kyle Cassidy. I am the founder of the Fearless Shepherds, and I cannot do this alone, so I would love to hear from you more. You can follow our movement on Instagram or TikTok at Fearless Shepherds. My personal account, Kyle Cassidy Fitness on Instagram, or shoot me an email, spiritmovement3@gmail.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. God bless.